Hey guys, and welcome back to another Subaru WRX vlog, and today we're going to talk a little bit about something that I found out while trying to resolve a check engine light, and it's specifically about the few updates out there that are available for the WRX CVTs that pretty much all of you guys should get. Before we get started, if you want to see more automotive content or more Subaru WRX content, especially around the WRX CVTs, consider subscribing to my channel. So as many of you guys know that follow the channel, I recently had a couple check engine light issues. Now my check engine light went on a couple times, and every time it went on, it showed a different code. Every time I put the code reader in that I own, something that all you guys should have, and I also took it into the dealer just because it's a newer car to me, and I wanted to make sure that there was nothing seriously wrong with my car. Now the first code that went off was something about the O2 sensor that ended up clearing itself. They actually replaced the battery when I did it. The second code that went off was a NOx sensor code, and the third code that went off was something related to the NOx sensor, but it was like a newer code and they couldn't exactly figure out what it was. Nonetheless, it was something that was definitely needed to be considered, and an investigation needed to happen. So an interesting thing happened. They immediately came back to me and they said, there's nothing we can really do right now. We need to know a little bit more about what's happening with the car. However, they did say for all the Subaru WRX CVTs that are not 2018s, there are 3 updates available to the ECU. Now for some crazy reason, they then went on to explain that they can only update the CVT's ECU and transmission if something happens to the car, basically if there's a problem. Now this is the center point to the message that I am giving to you guys. Now I had a problem, so I got the first update. So basically it just goes on to the report that they print out when you leave the service department as it being like an ECU applied update. They don't give a ton of information on what that actual update is, so if any of you guys have had that, I'd be curious to know exactly what the number or identification number of that update would be. And, I'm gonna go straight out there and say it, all of you guys should find a way to get into the dealer and get that update. So let me for a second defend why I think that. So I recently got the update. I got it probably about 2 weeks ago. I've been in a bit of a hiatus for filming just because I've been trying to figure out what's wrong with my car. And there've been a couple things with the update that have kind of happened. Now it did really 4 key things. It solved one problem that I think a lot of us have out there. I'll get to that in a second. And it did 3 things that were really great. First thing it did is I haven't had a check engine light since. So it resolved whatever was happening with my car. The next thing it did, which was kind of crazy, is it's definitely improved the throttle response. I'm not entirely sure what this update actually does, but from the day it happened, I've noticed a very much an increase in throttle response no matter what mode I'm driving in. So the third one, which is, it's a little more subtle if you're not paying attention, but I had been. So for a little bit of background, for a future video, I've been tracking my fuel economy and gas mileage, both, via the car and via the actual numbers. I've been taking those numbers down for a future video, so stay tuned for that. However, this update significantly improved my gas mileage. I went from, I commute to work, I do a lot of highway driving. I went from making about 30 to 33 miles to the gallon on the highway in intelligent mode for a long period of driving to making almost 38. I've had 2 instances where I made 38 miles to the gallon over about a 50-mile drive on the highway. So the gas mileage around my city driving has also increased. I'm probably averaging about 27 miles to the gallon right now, where beforehand I had been averaging about 25, 24. Now that's not a huge deal, but on the top end, if you do a lot of highway driving, that is a significant amount. 5 miles to the gallon is a lot of savings. So beyond anything else, I think you guys should try to get this update, or try to convince them to give you this update just because of the gas mileage. Now it also went and solved something that I feel that we've always had issues with in the CVT, is the kind of the way the transmission acts when you go from neutral to reverse to drive. You get these weird periods for a second where it's almost as if you're driving a manual car, where the car will rev up and then rev down, but that rev down is really when it's engaging the transmission. If you're not really cognizant of it, and you go from reverse to drive and you push it right away without giving it a second, you can do some damage to your transmission and it will clunk and clank and kind of jerk a little bit, which definitely for the CVT is not a good thing to happen. So I did those 4 things, and based off of what the tech said and the service said, to get that update, you really need to have something wrong with your car. So I suggest if any of you guys have that check engine light that sometimes comes on if your gas cap isn't all the way tight, or you just get a check engine light for nothing, or you could go in and complain that something feels weird about your car, you know, I think the first thing they're going to do is apply this this update to your car, and it's definitely something that you want to have. And I'm sure other guys that are out there that have gotten this update can attest to the fact that it's solved a lot of the little, like, you know, cruddy things about this car that kind of, like, from a day-to-day aspect are like, wow, I wish it wasn't like this, especially like that little rev hang when you're shifting gears where it hasn't really engaged the transmission yet. Definitely an improvement. Now, it's still there in my car, but it's not nearly the same, so it's definitely a great thing. Thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate you staying through the whole video. I'm really interested in what you guys have had for an experience for this. Have any of you guys had the second update or the third update that are available? I'm hoping to actually, the next time I have any issues with my car, going in and getting those and seeing what they do to the car. Because after this first update, I've noticed, you know, those differences, and they're pretty huge. With the amount of driving I do, that gas mileage actually saves me money. It will. It just recently has been starting to save me money, but it will save me money in the future. So I definitely recommend getting in and getting that done. Thanks for watching, guys.